So, all right. I think we're going. All right. So Hunter and Sarah, you already started us off. Thank you for that. Olivia, can you introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I graduated in the class of 2024, so very recently, and I was also an architectural studies major, and I just started a job with the Massachusetts School Building Authority as their architectural associate.
Thank you. Elise, how about you? Oh, let's see. You're
Okay.
muted. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Sometimes my computer doesn't really work with the audio, so let me know if it cuts out. Hi everyone, my name's Elise. I graduated in 2023 and I was an architectural studies and an environmental studies major at Holy Cross. And right now I'm a second year Master of Urban and Regional Planning student and a first year Master of Urban Design student at the University of Michigan. But I also work like back and forth between an architecture firm in Boston.
Thanks so much. And let's see it. Claire, how about you? Last but not least, at least on my panelists.
I'm Claire. I graduated in 2022 from Holy Cross with double majors in Russian studies and art history. So I wasn't like technically architecture, but I took Making the Modern City, which was a wonderful class and really opened my eyes to some of the things that I'm now working on. I work now at a Habitat for Humanity affiliate in Lancaster, which is in Pennsylvania. We're known for like having the Amish. So if you know where the Amish are, that's where we're working. And yeah, so I'm just really passionate about affordable housing and viewing that through the lens of, social justice and making changes like that. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Maybe we can go just with our attendees if you're willing to just unmute for just a second and just introduce yourself and say what year you are and anything else you want to share or things that are on your mind that are kind of relevant to this conversation. And maybe you can pass to a colleague when you're done so I don't have to be too much micromanaging you. Ava, do you want to start just because I see you next on my screen?
Hi, I'm Ava. I'm a sophomore and I'm a architectural studies major, environmental studies minor. Um, Meg, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Meg. I'm a sophomore as well, and I'm an architectural studies and possibly accounting double major.
Thanks so much. How about Victor?
Hi, I'm Victor. I'm an architectural studies major and also a double major with Spanish. Thank you.
Thanks. Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a senior architectural studies major with a minor in studio art.
Sarika?
Hi, I'm an architectural studies major and then an environmental science minor.
Thanks so much. I see Sam next.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a senior and I'm majoring in economics and history.
Awesome. And I think there might be a couple other folks who are listening, but I don't want to force them to unmute. Alex, do you want to say hi? You've recently reappeared.
Yeah, sure. I'm Alex. I'm a senior architectural studies and studio art minor, and yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for at least the starting off, right? So I have some questions and stuff that I have kind of at the ready for trying to ask our panelists to engage things a little bit. But I wonder, so we'll start there, but then we'll kind of see where we're going time-wise. And like if that feels too formal and not so helpful, we'll just kind of see where the wind takes us. So maybe we could just start off with the panelists and telling us a little bit more about what you're doing currently and kind of your career trajectory since you graduated from Holy Cross, right? Most of you are fairly recent and you kind of went directly in and you already alluded to what you're doing, but maybe if you want to talk a little bit about your path to getting to where you currently are, and then we can kind of use that to jump off. Anyone want to start off? Don't be shy. Don't make me call on you.
I can start.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I declared my major of architectural studies my sophomore year. I had always been interested in design, and I loved Professor Finstein's classes. I took so many whenever I can. And so you're probably wondering how I got into real estate, because as far as I know, I don't think Holy Cross offers real estate classes per se. Um, but honestly, I was applying to grad school for architecture. And when I was applying, I was really interested in obviously the design aspect, but I was also, when I was researching all these programs, I was also interested in the real estate industry and transactional side of real estate finance, construction management, and all these other aspects of it. And so that's kind of how I found Fordham's program. And it really has been a great experience for me. I've learned so much, and it's really my favorite part of it is being able to take what I learned from my architectural studies major and in college and seeing all those connections in real estate. um, Often when you think about architecture, you think of design and how people interact with space. And I obviously learned a lot about different architects and time periods and architectural styles. And I really do see an overlap in real estate because real estate, you're essentially trying to sell or market something. So all those aspects are very important. Um, so it was a really good foundation for me. And I'm in my second year and my last year of grad school. So right now I'm in the process of applying to full-time positions as a real estate analyst.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Who wants to go next? At least you're unmuted. I don't know if we want to
No.
speak on that.
Please tell me the audio is working. Okay, I saw
It's good.
Square. So I actually knew that I wanted to go into urban planning specifically since I was in high school, just like very serendipitously. I like went to a town planning meeting, and absolutely like fell in love with the graphics, the maps, like the ideas of how zoning can really like translate to affect the lived experience. So I knew I wanted to bring that to Holy Cross, but really like the architecture degree helped me understand how to articulate my thoughts about space and theory and honestly learn how to write. And I feel like that's a skill that I actually see a lot of my classmates really struggle with in grad school now, is because they didn't come from a liberal arts background and they don't know how to kind of like break down all these theories and stuff that we've learned. Like really honestly, in Professor Finstein's classes, I use the notes I have from my classes with her probably on a weekly basis. So that has been really incredible. And then going to those town meetings and just really understanding like what the day-to-day for planning means, not just like the history of it. I got to like understand like a bunch of different firms, and that's how I found the firm that I've been working at the past 2 summers. Like I even just submitted like an essay for their newsletter last night. So it's kind of nice that everything becomes full circle, but it was really talking more on the architecture design side that I realized I also not only wanted to be a certified planner, but wanted to be an urban designer. So Michigan has a dual degree option where you can also apply to do the Master of Urban Design while you're in planning. So that's what I'm doing right now. So this is my first year of design school.
That's so great. Thank you, Elise. Claire, do you want to go next? You're next on my.
Yeah, so I was really excited to hear about zoning because I feel like it's such an I feel like it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves, but it's such a huge part of my field, which is affordable housing, and zoning laws can definitely be the thing that makes or breaks any sort of new construction project. So at my affiliate, we work a lot with so essentially we're making houses and selling them to people who can afford a mortgage, but our mortgages are 0% interest. So they need to demonstrate a need for housing and an ability to pay that loan. And so a lot of our houses are pretty unique in that a lot of the houses that we are able to buy are really dilapidated, condemned houses within the city itself. So all of our construction projects are really unique and each one is really, really different. So we work with architects, lawyers, the zoning commissions of the city and county. We often have meetings with the community. We sometimes face some pushback because people have a lot of myths about affordable housing, which is always, tough to balance, the community's needs with the needs of the people that are trying to move in. So I've learned a lot in that way, but so yeah, that's my perspective on housing right now.
Thank you. How about you, Hunter?
Sure. So I guess I took a drafting course in high school. That's kind of how it started. And I was in AutoCAD for a little bit. I had a teacher who was actually an architect before that. And that's kind of where I was really passionate about it. And then I think actually my first architectural course at Holy Cross was Professor Carmone, Global History Architecture 1. Really loved it. There was like a sketchbook that he gave all of us. Really loved that. And then it just kind of went from there. And then, kept taking the architecture courses. COVID happened, which was interesting. And then I did the Harvard Design Discovery Program, and that really kind of locked me in for wanting to go and pursue my master's. And then, yeah, so I graduated 2023, went to UPenn, where I'm at now. And it's funny you mentioned affordable housing, Claire, because that's my semester project right now. And it's very complicated. So yeah, it's actually been a very linear track for me. Not a ton of questions of doing it, but certainly I think one of the big transitions is going from kind of the academic realm into the practicing realm that I experienced because this past summer was the first official experience I had in a firm. And I'd say school helps you prepare for a lot of different things. It doesn't always help you prepare for all facets of practice. So as you guys go through your career and whatever you choose to do, I really recommend, if you have the time, get into the field if you're in school or during the summer and really try to get a feel for it. Because sometimes it's a little different and you might want to know ahead of time, which I loved it. So I'm not saying I didn't, but
Well, and architecture is a field that deals with so many skill sets all at the same time. And I mean architecture here like broadly, right? Like the built environment, that it's not just about being able to just do one of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using physics software, I'm using Rhino, I'm coding in Python, so it's like, it's all over the place, but it's really rewarding. At least I find architecture really rewarding. Not so much with sleep, but with everything else, absolutely. But if you're passionate about it, then it's a great deal. Yeah.
Olivia, how about you? I know yours is more recent, so I don't know if you feel like you have.
I guess I can speak to kind of like why I went for the work to go to work first rather than to go to a grad program because I think, if you're getting ready for your next step, that's probably on your mind, whether you'll do like the grad school route or work first. And when I was kind of reflecting on it senior year, I felt like Holy Cross does an amazing job, and specifically Professor Finstein, of giving us like a really comprehensive understanding of a bunch of different aspects of architectural studies, whether it's history, theory, or design. We get a really good foundation. So when I was thinking about grad programs, I wasn't quite ready to choose just one path, whether it be like real estate or urban planning. I just wasn't there yet, and I think I'm still not quite there yet, which is why for me, it was seeming worthwhile to start applying to either internships or full-time positions just to kind of gain some work experiences before returning to school. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And for me, so far, it's been the right path, but more education is definitely down the road. But yeah, I think there's no right path. You just gotta do what's right for you. And I think everyone can probably agree to that on this call.
For sure. Well, because I remember having these conversations with like each of you, right? Both and some of you currently like today, right? Various versions of
Yeah.
these types of things. Olivia, do you want to kind of build on that for a sec? Because my next question was going to be asking you all to talk about like what's your day-to-day kind of like what does an average day look like for you? And I feel like that's probably different for each of you. So since we have you, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Um, Maybe I could just give like maybe like a brief like sentence about like what the MSBA does, just because I had no idea, and it so yeah. Basically, the MSBA allows K-12 schools in Massachusetts to apply for funding for construction and renovation projects for their schools. So, as part of the application process, schools must outline their ed plans and demonstrate how these proposed additions or constructions are going to really enhance the students' experience within the school. So, once the application is approved, which is a very lengthy process, I've learned for these districts, then the MSBA guides the projects through the various phases of design development and then construction all the way to closeout. So it can be a very lengthy process. And then, kind of in my role, my day to day, I'm looking at the reviews of the architectural programming. So basically, I will get the 60% and the 90% construction documents, and working with my supervisor, who is a registered architect, we go through them and make comments and send those back to the outside designers. And so there's a lot of back and forth between architecture firms, and then the MSBA is kind of like the overseer, so we are reviewing everything that comes in. So we're not necessarily, creating the plans, but we're the ones reviewing the plans, if that makes sense. And then that's kind of most of my day to day. But then when there's downtime, because there's a little bit of like a waiting period, since it's a government agency, it's very specific with like, this goes out on this day and like it comes back 7 days later. So sometimes there's a little bit of in between. So when I'm not doing those documents, I kind of get to do like research. So I've been looking and tracking which schools have added geothermals to their building after the MSBA has finished with them, because that's a trend that we've been seeing. So it's been really interesting so far. I've been working there for 2 months, so I'm constantly learning new things. But yeah, that's kind of my day to day, I would say.
Who wants to go next? I don't want to call on you. Anyone want to unmute and go for it?
I can go next. So as I said, I work at Habitat for Humanity. I handle a lot of the intake side of helping the people apply for our houses. We had over 100 applications when we first opened up applications. And our applicant pool is really diverse, which I really enjoyed working with people. So we have Church World Service is an organization that helps take in refugees from around the world. They have an office in Lancaster. So we have a really large refugee population here. So we actually have a lot of refugees in our program. So just this most recent application cycle, we have families from Ethiopia, Eritrea, Afghanistan, Liberia, and then Cuba, Guatemala, and then, of course, just America as well. And we take them through the process of applying for the houses. And then when they, get accepted and are ready to actually start helping to build the house. So we use volunteer labor to help build the houses, and that's what we're able to do to keep it affordable. So some of our families actually get to help build their houses. Sometimes I'm even on the construction site if we're approaching a deadline for, a certificate of occupancy and we need all hands on deck, even I'm on the construction site, which is really fun. So I handle a lot of that. I'm also handling a lot of the volunteer coordination right now to get corporate groups to come and volunteer on our construction sites. A lot of organizations now are doing volunteer work together, sort of like corporate social responsibility and things like that. So we'll take whoever if they want to come help. It's always a good and rewarding experience, I think. And then, it varies day to day, but I was just reviewing some legal documents, an agreement we have with our landscape architect right now, actually, to see if we can actually get out of that agreement, because the way he was representing us at our town meetings wasn't very good. So, our reputation, we have to be in good standing with the city in order to continue to get funding, to continue to get new houses. Yeah, it's something different every day, but mostly dealing with the people that eventually come to live in the houses that we build.
Thank you so much, Claire. Who wants to go next? I mean, each of the graduate students, I know you've each got kind of different programs and maybe different patterns. I don't know who wants to go.
I can go next. Yeah, my day today is a little bit different. So I am a full-time student, so my program is 2 years, as I said. And my first year, I loaded up on a bunch of courses. I was taking 4 to 6 classes a semester. So now I'm kind of on the back end of it. So I'm only taking 3 classes this semester, and then in my last semester, I have 2 classes. So mostly my day today is doing any homework or assignments or projects that I have. All my classes are night classes. That's just kind of how my program works. And as I said, am in the process of applying to jobs. So I go to any like networking events, or Fordham has a great alumni program as well, just like Holy Cross does. So really networking, putting myself out there wherever I can. And then I have a part-time job that's has nothing to do with my field, but just something to keep me going.
One of you can just unmute and go ahead. It's totally fine.
Sure. So I have about like around 7 classes throughout the week, some of which repeat. And like a couple of those are labs, so it's one-offs, like hour 30s. But for example, tomorrow I have a 10:15 for kind of like a sustainable materials research class. And that will go until about noon. And then from 12:30 to 6:30, I have studio. And then I probably usually have a meeting after that, because I'm currently co-president of one of the student groups here. And then throughout the week, there's different events, different lectures at night. Penn brings in a lot of different outside architects, landscape architects, urban designers, and that's always a really great opportunity. So sometimes at night, you'll go to one of those lectures. And then there's always networking events, usually on Thursdays or Fridays, that you can go to. But I'd say most of the day, I mean, I try to get into the studio by like 8 a.m. and start working, send some emails, go to class, and then between that, work and go to class, and then repeat. But you end up getting to know your classmates really well, and your professors, because you're spending so much time with them, and you end up really getting immersed into the education, which I think is incredibly rewarding. So it's a commitment. It's a commitment.
I'm laughing because my schedule is very similar to Hunter's, especially this year. Definitely studio takes up a lot of your life. But it's like a pretty similar schedule, almost a Holy Cross, like where you're balancing going to classes and then any extracurriculars. Kind of almost similar to Hunter too. Like I'm the co-president of the Urban Planning Student Association, so that's just honestly a ton of meetings. Even on the days that I don't have classes, it keeps me pretty busy to manage like over 100 students. And that's ending this semester, and then I'm transitioning to the co-president of the Urban Design Student Government, so I'm in the process of all of that as well. It's just a lot of paperwork. But I really think too, like something that I like a lot about Michigan is that anything that I've wanted to be involved in, like I can be involved in, and I really didn't have a concept of how that would play out because Holy Cross doesn't have grad students, so I didn't really know how that interaction would go. So I'm also on our journal, the board for our journal for urban planning and design. So that's been really great to kind of help a publication come to life and do all the layouts for it and work with editors and writers. So that's been really cool. And then even last semester, something I hope I can do again in my time here, I was a graduate student instructor, which is basically just a TA. You like go to the classes and then you lead a discussion section once a week. But I actually did it for architecture theory, and the only reason why I got hired was because I had an architecture history capstone from Holy Cross. So it is nice to have every like your coursework from school kind of come full circle and support you in grad school.
I love that a bunch of you have mentioned like the writing skills and the liberal arts framework. I feel like that feels like a commercial. You have not been prompted to say that in advance, right? But it
No,
really,
yeah.
yeah, go for it, Hunter.
It saves me weekly, because we have a paper every week that we have to write. And the only way I get all my work done is because I can be so efficient with the readings and writing from all of your classes. It is literally killer. It's
It's so great to be able to have those skills, right? So that was my next question was going to be about kind of the skills that you're using actually like on a day-to-day basis or like in your work. And you've all kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I wonder, and especially because you're doing different types of things, I wonder what different types of skills and ideas and like are, I mean, in Hunter's case, like maybe sometimes you're doing model building, but you mentioned you're also doing like Python coding. And so I don't know. So I wonder if each of you can share like some of the different things that you're engaging and like are those things that came from Holy Cross or those things that you've built along the way and how have you built them?
I can go. Um, I would say Holy Cross gave me a lot of great foundational skills that I use on my day-to-day life. Communication skills, public speaking is a big one, and I know I don't like public speaking, but it's very important and it's inevitable in life, and it's a really great skill to get used to and practice, even if it's uncomfortable. It's something that will very like take you very far. Um, Also, my writing skills, my researching skills have been very important for me. I had an internship this past summer, and I had to do so much research within the company, and then also researching different markets for real estate. And I had to present those weekly. So definitely my research skills were important. And also, kind of going back to our conversation a few seconds ago, um, all the work that you do and all the projects and assignments, they are so important and they're so beneficial because you can also use the projects and assignments to as a sample or an or example of your work to show when you're interviewing and looking at grad schools. I had a project and it's something that when I'm applying to jobs right now, it's something that I want to share because it took a lot of energy and time and it shows all of the skills that I've learned. So that's definitely something important that I use every day.
Anyone else want to jump in?
Sure. I think I mean, I kind of already echoed it a little bit. But I think a lot of the writing skills and research skills that you develop, especially within the architectural studies curriculum, are critical. I'm currently researching structural rammed earth for one of my papers and one of my courses, and I was in an interview with an Australian rammed earth specialist last week, and I was actually kind of like Elise, I was using the same format that we used in Making the Modern City, I think, for our research paper for that interview. So, the skills definitely carry over. I think actually my biggest challenge coming from Holy Cross to Penn was software-wise, technology-wise. Just because at Holy Cross, you don't do a ton of Rhino modeling, which is one of the main modeling, or even the Python coding that I'm learning this semester, or I was working in Excel last night and I'm completely illiterate in Excel. But luckily one of my classmates knows Excel. So, I think that's actually the point I'm going towards here is that I wouldn't, if you're considering moving forward in architecture, urban planning, landscape architecture, any other design related field, if you feel coming from Holy Cross that you may not know everything, these programs are aware that everybody comes from different backgrounds, certainly, and there's a lot of resources for that. And also your classmates end up being some of your best resources because especially in design fields, people come from a large array of backgrounds. And there's usually almost always somebody who has some niche skill that can help out with whatever's going on that nobody else knows what's going on with. So I wouldn't worry about that too much, just focus on, moving forward.
Oh, sorry.
Oops, sorry. No, you can go.
Oh, no, you can go.
Thanks. So yeah, just like some of the others have said, definitely communication is a huge part of it. Mine, I think for the most part, is more verbal. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to, write any research papers like that or anything. I definitely do miss that though. But I interact a lot with a bunch of different stakeholders in our organization. So donors, but also corporate volunteer groups, individual volunteers, um, the home buyers who are currently in the process of helping to build and eventually buy their homes, and then the dozens of other homeowners who are currently living in their homes and paying their mortgages, and then the stream of other people that come in looking for housing resources and other social services. I think just being able to communicate like what our mission is, what our goals are in this organization, and how everyone can play a role in that has been really, really good. And being able to communicate a lot of our home buyers' stories with their permission, communicate their stories to inspire other people to, to donate or to donate their time by volunteering with us has been really invaluable. And I think my time at Holy Cross has definitely contributed to that ability to communicate.
I would also echo similar things that people have said. I think the biggest one for me so far has been the communication skills, specifically public speaking. And I will say one thing that I think sets Holy Cross students apart, and what I feel like probably helped when I was interviewing for these jobs, was Holy Cross gives us like a really good understanding of what is the bigger picture here, and kind of how does architecture fit into the larger like regional or even global, like why does this matter? And I think that's something that people can't always express. So I think we've written tons of papers, like we've done research, and I think that is what sets the Holy Cross Architectural Studies student apart, whether it's on an application for grad school or jobs. I would say that's really important. I also think any of the classes that incorporated a CBL where you were engaging in the community, I specifically talked about the Woo Fridge project, which I did in Professor Finstein's class, and they like loved that in my interviews and were so interested. We're like looking up the nonprofit online. So I think that goes along with what I was saying of just understanding how architecture fits within the larger picture and why it matters in our society. I think um, you're already reflecting on that. So I would say know that you're on track in that aspect. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I can't agree with that enough, especially because urban planning and urban design is inherently very interdisciplinary fields. And I feel like my peers who came from like strictly maybe just like a business background or don't have any experience kind of being really fluid, kind of going between like politics, sociology, architecture history, like spatial understandings, like they really struggled, I think, in the transition to be able to talk very freely in the way that I think Holy Cross students can. And I really can't stress enough the importance of communication, not only just for presentations within class, but also like eventually you'll be working with clients and you need to convince them of your design ideas and that it's the best thing for their project proposal. And like writing is so important, especially in planning, that at Michigan, they like make you go to a writing instructor for 2 mandatory classes and you have to sit with her and she edits your paper in front of you because they really want you to leave as a good writer. So I feel like I didn't have to put in as much effort, I think, to those classes as some of my peers. So that was really nice. And I feel like even just being able to understand like information and research and distill that down in like a pretty simple way is really powerful. Like we do a lot of tough readings in Professor Spinstein's class actually. And I just had to last Friday, I'm in a urban PhD theory class, which I don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but I had to lead a 3-hour seminar on modern architecture, and I literally used pretty much every single paper I wrote in modern architecture. So I feel like it's really great to be able to, how do you take these really complex things, because you get so embedded in kind of like the urban world. So how do you communicate that to people that aren't as obsessed with it as you? I feel like is really huge.
That was like so fantastic, all of you. But also I think speaking so well to, I think one of the things that Holy Cross does really well, right? Of like really thinking about the why it matters, as Olivia said, I just think is awesome. And I feel like the fact that each of you are doing like different things, right? In your own lane that is so, each of them are so interesting, really speaks to that. So kudos to you for like leaning into that so well. I'm mindful of, I want to give the assembled current students the opportunity to ask questions, but I also don't want to put you all on the spot if you don't feel like you have something immediately at the ready. Do folks have a question kind of at hand? Like if you want to show me kind of with a hand, or I have another question at the ready, but I don't want to lose time to give you something to ask. If folks have particular questions about graduate schools or the job pursuits, finding your way in either of those things that folks want to raise. Not yet. They're an attentive bunch, but they're quiet. All right, so here's my next question then. Maybe we'll kind of stir it and we'll circle back. So I want to give everyone the chance that if you do have questions, we'll come back. I guess my last question, or not next at least, was thinking about like, is there a recent project that you've been working on that you're really proud of, that is something that you might want to tell us about?
I could go.
Eric, great job.
Thank you. So I took a class over the summer, and it was actually an elective course that it just sounded interesting to me. And I was like, why not? I'm here to learn, expand my horizons. And it was called Hotel Investment Design and Development. And it was a really interesting course. And the big project throughout the entire summer was we had to pick a land parcel anywhere in the United States and basically create a ground up hotel from scratch. And that's what I was saying earlier is this is the project that I use as a sample of work when I'm applying to jobs. And it was great because I got to use all of my skills and showcase them. So basically what I had to do was create the design and the concept of the hotel. Then I had to estimate the finances for it and basically show why it would be a feasible development. And what I really liked about it was both creative, but also I had to, sit and crunch some numbers, which maybe isn't my favorite part. But it was a really fun project, and it's something that I'm very proud of. Like I had an internship over the summer, and I was telling my coworkers all about it, and my boss was like, "Oh, like let me see," and I presented it to my coworkers, and it had nothing to do with what I was doing at my internship, but it's definitely something that I'm proud of and I had a lot of fun doing and I was really invested in.
Feel free to, if you have something you want to share, maybe something you've been working on, anyone?
I can go. I guess even thinking too about classes just being in the context of grad school, something that you do in your second semester in the planning program is you're partnered with a client. So my group is partnered with like an environmental justice community that neighbors Detroit, and we were in charge of redoing their parks and recreation master plan, which I seemingly like it just seems like a bunch of writing, but it was actually like a ton of field work, which was pretty nice to be able to like get out into the city. And I feel like that's one of the strong suits of like being by Detroit too, is like it's such an interesting case study. And we like presented at city council, and we're like going through like all this like massive hoops to get them funding from like state funding, and it just got passed like last month at city council, so they'll be able to get funding to redo some parks. So I feel like that's really nice. And then another thing that also comes to mind, because now I'm like the coach for the next, like there's the American Planning Association has a student planning and design competition every year, and I did it last year, and after just like one semester of education in the planning program, my team was able to get honorable mention at the national conference, which was pretty amazing. Like we only had really like a few classes under our belt, but just like with the guidance of school and kind of all the skills that you're able to gain in such a short time is really cool. So this year, I'm coaching the next team that's going to represent Michigan. So I feel like it's really nice to then also like make those connections with other people who are passionate in the field and in your cohorts.
Sounds so neat and good work. Help is like CBL, like in a Michigan context, it sounds like. Yeah, totally. I think Claire, I don't know, whoever wants to, if you have something you want to add here, or if you don't, I don't know. I saw people start to unmute before, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so I have less like very concrete, discrete projects, and it's more long term. But I guess one of the things that I made recently was a presentation, just like a very short history of housing and basically how we got to the current housing crisis. Sort of tracking some of like the major legislation that has happened with like the Fair Housing Act and redlining before that and everything, all the way up until the 2008 housing crisis, and then explaining where we are now. So making that sort of digestible for a lot of the people that come in to volunteer, so that they can understand why it's important to be working on affordable housing, and why their contribution, either as donations or actually physically putting in the work to help build these houses, is so meaningful and amazing. So that's just a small thing that I've done recently that I thought was neat.
It's so important and so fabulous. I don't Olivia, Hunter, I don't know, either of you have anything you want to add here?
I mean, I'm doing an affordable housing project this semester. Whether or not it would actually be affordable remains to be seen. As like a lot of studios go. So I don't know if I can say I'm proud of it quite yet from a social standpoint, but I'm sure the design will be interesting by then. But I did some work this summer at a firm, and it was kind of just small stuff for different high schools. But I actually did get to see some of it start to go up at least, just small details. And I think that's really rewarding, especially in design, when you see maybe one of your designs, even though it may be small, come to fruition a little bit, even if it's bathroom tiles per se, it's still something. And I think at the end of the day, that really, is inspiring to keep going and get more involved. But if you can see something come to fruition, that's great. And I saw a couple of those. So I guess that's what I'm proud of.
I am interested in the work on the geothermals that I've been doing, and kind of just like hoping for a more sustainable, just like a small part in like making things more sustainable within the MSBA. And then also I've been doing some cost analysis for, we have these designer selection panels where essentially the architecture firms interview to get certain projects. And so before they interview, I've been doing cost analysis and then making charts to show to our board before these meetings, just to kind of double check to see if when an architecture firm says that they're maybe cost effective, or to see if that's really the truth based on previous projects. So I think that's it's a small part, but I think it's valuable. So I would say I'm proud of it.
It's so neat that each of these things really plug into such a, like, on the one hand, it sounds like a niche, an interesting niche on the one hand, and yet they're all part of this whole larger awareness of like the systems of how things actually get built, right? And you're dealing with clients and patrons, and sometimes those are not always necessarily the same, or residents versus all these different nuances, which I think are really interesting. Let me kind of open it up to the floor. Do folks have particular questions or ideas that they would find it helpful to hear from? I know some people might have particular graduate school questions or career questions, though I feel like we've talked about some of those things. And you don't have to raise your hand. You can just unmute, and anything you want to ask folks about.
I have a question.
Please.
I think Hunter kind of touched on this a little bit before, but obviously we don't really cover like the software and computer design aspect of architecture at Holy Cross. So I was just wondering how you guys kind of handled like your lack of fluency, I guess, with the sophomores, and like what your encounters have been like with these like programs?
Sure. That's a really great question because when I was at Holy Cross, I was also wondering that, and then I found out very quickly. So I think one of the really great things you could do at Holy Cross right now is I believe there's two programs, one at Columbia GSAP and one at the Harvard GSD over the summer. Both of those will take you through kind of a quick design project that uses some of the popular softwares right now being used in many of the grad school programs. That was my first introduction to kind of what I'm currently using for software. And then if you go, I'll speak from my experience, if you go from architectural studies at Holy Cross to a MArch program, usually since we're not an accredited degree at Holy Cross, they'll take you into some kind of summer program to catch you up for the first couple of months. You'll essentially spend most of your summer learning the software, learning how to draw, learning different conventions that you'll need throughout the semester. So the schools absolutely consider that and will take you in and help teach you. And I did do that. I'd say I've learned way more from my classmates as time has progressed. And I think that becomes your most valuable resource ultimately. Is there's so many little commands and niches and things that you can do with even, you know, Adobe Suite, Rhino, whatever it may be, which are the primary things I use. You know, it's really just reaching out to people, asking for help is big, you know, and there's always resources available. But yeah, coming from Holy Cross, I'd recommend those two programs. And then, you know, just be aware that they usually have a summer program to catch you up as well as they can. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Well, and Hunter and Elise, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, kind of continuing in this realm of like, it's not just that they are catching you up, like they're different tracks, right? Like, so meaning you're not competing with people who've come from an undergraduate degree that's a professional architecture degree. So they're not expecting you. Like I often say to many of the folks assembled here tonight, right? Like architecture schools and planning schools don't expect you to come in already knowing how to be an architect or a planner. Like you're trying to show them that you have the chops to learn these things. So I'd love to hear if both of you have more things about that. But I'll just say as a footnote to those folks who haven't taken architectural studio yet, I know that Professor Sullivan has started doing more digital rendering and stuff over the last couple of years. So there are some developing skills for that we're, I think that we're making progress on since you were there, Hunter. But certainly like room for a gazillion more, but thinking about like, how do we walk that fine line, right? Of making those classes accessible to majors and non-majors alike, while also still making it useful for everybody as they want to build on it.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, urban planning and urban design are very different in their requirements with what you need to enter into grad school. For urban planning, you don't need a portfolio because it's mostly writing, policy, and law based. But urban design, you do need a portfolio. So similar with Hunter, and also with the advice of Professor Finstein, I did the Harvard GSD Design Discovery program over the summer to really kind of be like my intro into all the different softwares. And I told myself I would continue learning it with LinkedIn Learning, but you really just learn it once you're kind of like thrown into it at school. And I can't echo it enough. I feel like I learn more from my peers than I even do from my professors in my classes to some extent. For the urban design program, even just specifically at Michigan, it's a post-professional degree. So they kind of expect you to have a lot of experience in the field. So I'm kind of like a weird one-off, and I'm also the only one that's not an architect in my program. So I feel like I've become like the point GIS person. So it's like trading like GIS knowledge for like Rhino knowledge and like vice versa. So I definitely take advantage of like any summer programs or summers at all to try to get familiar with some of the software, but really just knowing you'll kind of just dive into it head first once you get to school. And I'll also make a small little notion too that your classmates at Holy Cross are going to be like incredibly instrumental. Hunter actually helped me with my portfolio for the urban design program, so it's definitely really beneficial to keep in touch with your peers.
Well, and that's a great segue of like, if you all are willing to share your contact information with folks, if folks have questions and want to follow up, if that's okay with you, then I think everyone would be grateful for being able to ask follow-up questions. Hunter, did you have anything further about that whole concept of the software or anything else, or we've licked that?
I'd actually say that the I so I think actually not having a ton of software at Holy Cross, or I mean, I guess it's changing now, which is great.
little bit, a little
But
bit.
a little bit, but I'd also think that part of what makes me kind of different from some of my peers, because a lot of them came in with 2 to 3 years of work experience. They had done an accredited background at a different school. A lot of my classes actually composed of international students, so it's from around the world, and everybody came in with different backgrounds, but a lot of people did have a lot of software experience, but they didn't exactly have the same way of thinking, I'd say. Sometimes the traditional kind of route, the accredited route, I'm not gonna speak ill of it, but I think sometimes it limits you and you have habits that are common across everybody. At Holy Cross, I did a lot of sketching. I did a lot of studio courses that kind of varied the mediums in which I use and how I thought. And I still use that today. And I think that helps set me apart sometimes when I need to. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just hand sketch. So I like hand sketching way more than software. I rather be out of the digital world, but it comes in time, and Elisa is absolutely right, where you do learn a lot from your classmates. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I was super worried about it when I was at Holy Cross, and it didn't turn out to be as big of a deal as I made it. So they'll catch you up, but enjoy sketching using other mediums while you can, because that also plays really well into a portfolio if you happen to go that route. The 500th great line drawing that they see from a digital sketch isn't going to be that impressive. You use charcoal or something and make a really nice collage. Now that's really different, and it's a different train of thought. So yeah, Holy Cross is great for a unique way. Yeah.
Well, and a shameless plug, not for my class, but for Professor Scomp, next semester is offering a new class. It's VAST 199, and it's called Architectural. It's not in front of me. It's like form and architectural drawing, or some architectural drawing form or something like that. Anyway, for those of you who are current students, you should totally check it out. And it totally leans into what Hunter was saying. Like, it's going to be a lot of sketching. It's thinking about perspectival drawing, lots of different kind of modes, and thinking about, again, how we can equip our students with lots of different skills, regardless of where you're headed, and helping you kind of break through that barrier, right? That we all have had those moments of like, ooh, that sketch doesn't look the way I thought it looked in my head, right? And how do we kind of create an iteration to be able to move through that? Other questions from our assembled fans? Things on graduate school or job applications, or we're almost up against time, but I want to give you the chance if you have other things you want to raise. Yeah, go for it, Sarika.
Can you guys talk about any like internships that you did?
So my program wasn't really necessarily an internship, but it's something similar. It's the AmeriCorps program. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that, but I joined AmeriCorps, which is like Peace Corps, but domestically. And I joined right after college. It's a really good 10 and a half months after the 10 and a half months of service, where you get essentially paid federal minimum wage to do a lot of work. But that was what led me to Habitat for Humanity. And after that, they hired me on full time. So if anyone's unsure about like work or grad school, I would definitely suggest looking into AmeriCorps. You can work with a ton of different nonprofits and federal agencies throughout the country. So if anyone's interested in that, just let me know.
Any other questions from folks? Maybe is it okay if I invite our panelists? I don't know if you want to throw your email in the chat, if you're willing to do that, so that we just streamline the effort, that folks can be able to cut and paste that if they want, if they have follow-up questions. If you just throw that in there, that would be awesome. That way we can close the loop if we have different things. Last call for questions. Okay. Well, I want to be mindful it's 8 o'clock and you've all taken time out of your night. So I really appreciate that. And thank you so much, first and foremost, to our panelists. It was such a treat to see you all. And some of you, I'm having total flashbacks of teaching on Zoom from this very room. So I'm really grateful that we're not doing that, but I'm so glad to see you. And all of my current students, thank you so much for coming out tonight. And please do take advantage of the expertise of your alumni colleagues here to network and ask further questions. And we'll all stay in touch. All right, I'm going to stop our recording here. Thank you all so much for coming. I'll see you all soon.
Thanks for having us, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank
you so
you.
much. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. See you, Professor.
Thank you.